by only drinking beer and milk and eating cookies. Like he's on the Santa diet. He's getting all swollen up.
Santa on December 26th diet, where he lets himself just get hammered.
The diet begins today. I'm going on Atkins immediately. Oh no, croissants for breakfast.
But Gloria read it just to feel like she could try to understand him again. Like, so she started to read through it furiously, trying to catch up with him, and then she's still like, he's 16. You're not Holden Caulfield.
Right.
Yeah, and it even went farther than that. Like, he had a backup copy of Catcher in the Rye, and in that he wrote, "From Holden Caulfield to Holden Caulfield."
Oh, God.
Yeah, and he said, like, he made sure, he said, "I did not believe that I was Holden Caulfield, but more than anything, he wanted to be Holden Caulfield."
But isn't that the definition of what a phony is? Is someone who wants to be somebody else?
No. It's not at
Yo.
all. It's not that you want to be somebody else, it's that you present yourself as somebody that you actually aren't.
But isn't that what he's doing with Holden Caulfield?
He's not presenting himself as Holden Caulfield.
He's calling himself Holden Caulfield.
Well, he's calling himself Holden
I
Caulfield.
think this is a slippery slope. Like, is he wearing a top hat and getting a monocle?
It is.
That's how I picture
It is a
Holden
slippery
Caulfield.
slope.
I have no idea what he looks like.
He's a little boy. He's a 16-year-old boy with a t-shirt on, jeans.
Yeah, I always pictured him with glasses.
He's got to have glasses. Yeah.
I see Chucks for some reason.
Were those even around then?
I guess.
Yeah, of course.
I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think. I don't know. I'm not a
I don't know the
shoe
history of
historian.
Converse.
You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't work for Zappos in their about section.
Well, what he wanted to do is he wanted to bleed into the pages of Catcher in the Rye. He wanted to bleed himself with the ink. Like, he wanted to be the titular catcher that saves children from falling off the cliff.
Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of this recently, past few months.
I tell you what, I'm a real titular catcher. Whenever my fiance.
I'd actually listened to this one before at some point.
I thought we were almost mature enough to let that word go.
I actually put it in there as a trap to see which one of you were gonna.
I thought it. You know I thought it because that is a humorous word because it has you know what word is in there. That's kind of fun. But yeah.
Yes, he said there was a story where it's about children playing in the fields of rye, and he made up this kind of allegory about kids falling off the cliff, and that he wanted his life to be, he would be at the edge of the cliff catching the kids. But a part of it's also, I think we talked about a little bit last episode, it's an authoritarian point of view. It's this idea of I'm the only person who can help everyone.
Yeah.
And that the way to help people is to freeze them in the past.
Well,
they're not allowed to grow.
It's good because it's a bunch of long-form content, which is good when you're working on real tedious experiments for a while. Like I did a bunch of my mouse EEG surgery experiments listening to the episodes on L. Ron Hubbard. And a bunch of another experiment listening to the Kuklinski ones, so kind of hoping that there is another series of episodes that they did on another big name person that I haven't heard yet, because I haven't heard nearly close to the majority of these episodes, but I don't know. Mostly played the ones that stood out to me or seemed interesting.
Older, you're supposed to make sure that they never change, and because change is bad. Change means you turn into a phony. The only people that are real are children, even though you eventually will grow up.
Right.
No matter what.
Kind of horrifying there.
Yeah.
Kind of horrifying.
Yeah, it's a lot of people have that authoritarian streak, especially when they're younger.
Sure.
You know, where it's like, how's that person gonna tell me what to do? I'll tell them what to do.
That's gonna work out, you know. But meanwhile, there's
Oh yeah, the Jonestown one was the first one that I listened to, actually.
It's Whopper Wednesday. We need to get these Whoppers out. Come on, let's go.
Well, Mark David Chapman, he wanted to blend himself with the ink. He wanted to become Holden Caulfield. He just had to figure out how. And all this time, something very dark and very troubling was brewing inside Mark David Chapman. Because it wasn't like this new obsession, made him happy. It's not like when you find, a new video game that you really love and just want to play all the time.
Sure.
Like this, it made him miserable. So instead of making him happy, the obsession just seemed to give a focus to all the free-floating hatred that Chapman had been storing up for the world not bestowing greatness upon him. So that hatred, now laser focused.
Also, yeah, I did the Enriquez one.
Just so happened that the
God, I
thing that
re-listened
gave
to
that
the,
destination is a book that Chapman stumbled upon in the same
got the
volume
Leonard
that
Lake
was
and
released
Charles
in
Ng
2001.
episode.
The book that Mark David
Again,
Chapman found
recently.
was John Lennon. One
Oh
Day
god, the
Alone.
voices.
Oh, that's actually a great book for an alcoholic to read. One
They're
day
so
at a
good.
time.
So when Chapman opened that book, he found dozens of photographs of John Lennon's new opulent lifestyle paid for by his near billion-dollar share of the Beatles' gold mine.
So rich.
John Lennon, in
Very.
1980, he was worth $800 million.
Oh God! How
Yeah.
don't you just have a bed filled with coke?
I mean, that's what he did for a while. And then he chased every lifestyle in the world, right? Where he went and...
Oh, there's a bike there. It's good to know.
Yoko made a bunch of records together, and then they bought the apartment, and he traveled the world, and then eventually he lived into this weird reductive lifestyle by 1980, where it was all about, like...
It's an impression that you feel bad at, or bad for laughing at, but... God. It's so good. Yeah, God, I'd have to go through the episode list and see which ones I've listened to and which ones I haven't yet. I did that one. I did Dahmer and John Wayne Gacy and
I just want to lay in bed with
whoops. Who are the other heavy hitters? Can't remember. A bunch of them. But I'm always looking for new, interesting, multi-part series that they have.
child and my wife all nude. And all we do is read the paper and eat little breads, tiny little breads.
It's like all of a sudden being like, you're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said he became a house husband for
Okay.
5 years. Yeah. Out sailing, they bought a yacht. Like he had this huge country estate. Like John Lennon was definitely spending that 800 million that he had.
Okay.
And as Chapman said, the catcher in the rye was the stove, and the linen book.
Oh, I already have that. No, I haven't actually played the Rasputin episodes.
was the fire.
These drove him insane.
Yes.
These
When
pictures?
he saw this book, yes, because it was the picture of.
It was one of those ones where I wasn't sure if I was actually that interested in Rasputin for like 5 episodes, so I hadn't listened to it, but
Craziest building.
wasn't especially interested in L. Ron Hubbard either, and that was a good series of episodes, so guess they made a bunch of episodes for a reason. You can also just put music on if you want. Anyone else who's listening? I need a coffee. Just got out of the shower. Mostly just waiting for my hair to dry before I go out. I'm drooling myself. Yeah, I'll listen to that one next. What are you doing? I'll listen to that episode next. I guess that's probably... Oh, you already had a 2x. Oh. Do you not have any more ammo? Yeah, you do. Oh, it's a shotgun. I don't know. Honestly, I was sort of surprised that I hadn't heard of this podcast faster. podcast. I was very much entertained from like the moment I started listening to it. It was just very interesting. And has sort of superseded a lot of the other podcasts I would listen to. Like entertainment podcasts mostly. Not NPR stuff. Can I not jump out of this? Okay. Oh, I haven't listened to their other stuff. Any of the other podcasts, just this one. Yeah, I listened to all the Jonestown episodes. That was the first series that I listened to from them. You know, I had a bike. Where the hell did I park it? Oh, there it is. I used to listen to a bunch of Citation Needed, which is different than Citations Needed, it turns out. And when I found that podcast recommended by somebody, I think they were actually recommending a different podcast, and I just clicked the one with the very, very similar name, which is mostly just like a comedy podcast based on reading Wikipedia articles and then regurgitating them out and making jokes about it. I don't actually know what Citations Needed is about, but I've been finding myself a lot more interested in listening to Last Podcast stuff than Citation Needed. It just seems a lot funnier.
In New York, have you ever been past it? What's the last time you've been past the Dakota?
Also a lot more content.
Right before we recorded the last episode, I went. Yeah, it's great. I went down to there. It's amazing. It's surrounded by these like ancient stone gargoyles. It's got 2 doormen on staff at all times.
There you go.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, and it's right across the street from Central Park.
Yep.
It is amazingly nice. One of the nicest buildings in all of Manhattan, which makes it one of the nicest buildings in the fucking world.
There it is.
Did you look like a crazed stalker when you did it?
That's what surprised me is still, to this day, there were probably 6 people up and down West.
Yeah, I've never known how much of the episode is scripted and or how much is just ad-libbed. I'll take the vector, I guess. Thought I had a thing for that. Guess not. No, see, I think citation is needed is different than citation needed, which is different than citations needed, and it's very clear how I could stumble on an entirely different podcast. But still end up liking it. It's a lot of bandages. In fact, I'd never even heard of citation is needed. But yeah, also all of the impressions in the episodes are real good. That's sort of one of the main draws It's like, okay, better get a serial killer episode or something with a guy with a very funny voice. A la all of the Pee Wee Gaskins episodes.
70-second taking pictures. They were posing in front of it. Like, it is still to this day, people make, and this was like 2:00 p.m. on a Monday. Like, this wasn't a Saturday, or this wasn't a
Yep.
weekend. Like, people are just going there.
Dude, I'm telling you, you're an actor, you're in New York, you're skinny, you're lanky, you want to make some money, go put on some John Lennon gear, go dead, and just have a tip bucket there. People will take pictures, give them a buck, you will make thousands of dollars a year. You won't have 800 million bucks. You are the person pretending to be dead John Lennon, but you'll make a couple $1,000.
You will get a couple of guys showing up as Ringo next to be like,
Can we just stand next to him? Can we just be in the picture as well?
I love Ringo so much.
So Chapman, he sat there and flipped through the pages of the book, and he thought.
Oh, I
about
just
all
finished
those
H.H. Holmes a couple days ago.
The Beatles, all that time,
And
peace and love, and he started getting
I
angry.
used to listen to some of the hilarious World of Depression, but
His wife, ranting about how hypocritical
I don't
it was
know.
that this man who showed off his yachts
started
and
finding it
fancy
kinda
apartments
dry
in
at a certain
country
point.
estates had sung about imagining no possessions.
Huh.
Then Chapman read an article in which Lennon admitted that all the super obnoxious stunts that he and Yoko had pulled throughout the years had all been for publicity. All cynical promotional events just to sell more records.
Well, I mean, imagine John Lennon, he's saying, imagine you have no possessions because you gave them all to me. You know, like, I'm not, this is not about me, this is about you. Like, you don't have a God, you have nothing, but like, I have a bunch of stuff.
Then Chapman got a copy of Lennon's first solo record and heard Lennon sing that he didn't believe in God or heaven or even in the Beatles.
it's very, it's a provocative song. It's a fine song. You can see that he wrote it to be specifically upsetting.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, which is part of the infuriating nature of John Lennon.
Okay.
Oh yeah, he was a real jerk off.
Yeah.
but very talented.
Makes
jerk
sense.
off.
Technically the victim in this story. but-
He is absolutely the victim.
Of course,
but
of course.
That also does not make him a saint.
No.
You know, that does not make him a martyr or a god or anything like that. We are still allowed to say that John Lennon was an infuriating human being.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said that the only things that he believed in were himself and Yoko.
Sure.
But even
Right.
sure,
Sure. I
okay.
mean, I listened to Double Fantasy while researching this episode, and I'm not a fan.
Couple of good songs on there.
There are two good songs. I'm Losing You is a fantastic song, and Watching the Wheels is a pretty good song.
That's something fun to do too.
But even after all this, the thought of killing John Lennon hadn't entered into Mark David Chapman's mind. He was angry and betrayed by what he thought John Lennon owed him specifically,
Right.
but he wasn't going to kill him.
Okay, well, if he does plan to kill him, he's gonna have to go through the little people. He has to go through little people Congress. He better get approval from Congress.
Honestly, talk about the red tape.
Yeah,
You know what you
it's
gotta
not
deal
easy
with?
to do. We're talking war here.
You, and talk about the lobbyists from the balls saying we need to be jerking off more.
Oh man.
What finally did it, though, was Sergeant Pepper's.
I bet.
Isn't that what you call your shits? Sergeant Pepper's. Oh man, that's
Admiral Peppers. All right, let's not. But they didn't go to 15 years of shit school to be called Sergeant Pepper.
very good. That's very. You keep them honest. Keeping them honest. That's good.
So one night, Chapman was thumbing through his wife's Beatles LPs and happened to pull out her copy of Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by the Beatles. He said he was staring at John Lennon's
the
face
noise.
on the cover of that album, just like he used to stare at his copy of Meet the Beatles when he was a kid, and suddenly a thought popped into his head. Wouldn't it be something if I killed John Lennon?
Wouldn't it be something? like he came up with the cronut.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't it be something about kill John Lennon? That's a funny idea.
Wild. Yeah, that's one of those thoughts that you come in and bump right out. But I guess for him, it just kind of bounced around.
We all have dark thoughts.
Of course.
We all have very dark thoughts. Like, what if? What if I did that?
Yeah.
But you don't do it.
Every day. Technically, the therapist that I have is called intrusive thoughts.
Yes.
You know, and I have them all the time. Yeah, of course I'm always driving down the street being like, if I just fucking jerk the wheel and I stop all this whole highway of traffic. It's, you know, it's fun almost to think about, to dabble in.
Oh, yeah.
But you just let it go.
Yeah, my most intrusive thought is when I'm in the exit row on a plane. What would happen if I just pulled that lever?
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Well, the horrible thing was, it was pretty easy to kill John Lennon. Because everyone knew he lived at the Dakota, and they knew exactly where to find him coming in and out of his home almost every day. Because people would camp out in front of his building waiting for an autograph or just to meet him. And to his credit, he was actually very gracious to his fans who did that.
Sort of like an Occupy John Lennon situation. That's actually very nice, though, that he would sign autographs. Let's say that's very sweet.
He was really close with his fans by the end, because in the end he kind of came back around. As he was coming back down to Earth, a part of it was his, like, trying to accept everyone. Like, he was trying, like, he would make, like, friends.
Happy Saturday. I always wondered if you could shoot somebody down in a parachute. I'm sure you probably could, I've just never seen it. Oh, San Diego. It was fun. I wonder if anyone's in here.
With some of the super fans that would hang out, like, sort of, like, they would sit and they would chat.
So maybe he could have turned out okay. You know, he went... Shia LaBeouf phase?
Yes.
Where he says, I'm disconnected. But then Shia LaBeouf hanging out with everyone, watching his own movies, being around people. I'm actually a huge Shia LaBeouf fan. I'll defend him. I like him.
Yeah, I like him. He's fine. He's just fine. But yeah, he was, I mean, and also to John Lennon's credit, yeah, like Kendra said, he was pulling back from all of those kind of shitty, obnoxious things that he'd done and said over the years. Because that little hiatus that he took, it was about a 5-year hiatus between albums, everything slowed down for him. Because the thing I understand about John Lennon is that he'd been famous since he was 16 years old.
Oh, wow.
You know, decades. For decades,
That's
this guy had
crazy.
been mobbed everywhere he went. Everywhere that is, except New York City.
New York does not care.
No.
People were cool here, you know? Like, I mean, they cared that he was John Lennon, of course, but if they stopped him, it would mostly be just be like, hey, man, love the Beatles.
Right.
Hey, yo, Johnny, love the Beatles, huh? Hey, question. Why you fucking Yoko? All right, I'll see you soon. Bye there. All right, buddy, you old.
Yeah, or like Ribbon.
Hey, I like that Walrus song there, John. Hey, you looking skinny. Get yourself some pizza, all right?
I love New York.
Yeah, they'd like prove it was like, hey John, when the Beatles getting back together,
Right.
He'd be like, oh yes, very funny, very funny. Yes, that's fine. And he'd like stop and like shake their hand. They'd just be like, hey man, gotta say, like Revolver changed my life, and he'd be totally cool with it. He'd love it.
Okay.
And plus, New York City, it was still in its hellhole phase in 1980, so it was kind of like insulated from the rest of the world. People were terrified of New York City.
Yep.
Right.
So he pretty much, it's not like now, you know, where fucking anybody can come and it's
Oh, yeah.
totally safe. It's one of the safest cities on the planet.
Honestly, the most dangerous thing in New York City, Times Square, Mickey Mouse, Spider-Man, the Incredible Hulk, people who are dressed up as the Statue of Liberty, they are not your friends.
No, don't take pictures with them because they will
What?
demand money from you.
Absolutely. And never take a mixtape because it is not free.
No,
What?
Never, ever, ever, ever take a mixtape. You learned that one.
Okay, that's a thing that can happen, I guess.
Go fast.
Yep.
This show is also brought to you by AdamandEve.com. Are you? I don't put that all off. They'll even throat check. He'd have recurring dreams of getting shot and killed specifically. And he'd sit at his kitchen table and get stoned, and he'd just go on and on about it for hours at a time. Oof.
And it also, it wasn't the term murdered, it was the term assassination that shows you where his head was at. Where he viewed himself as an important enough figure that when someone would murder him, it would. And I mean, and technically, in many ways, he was correct.
I think
mean,
so,
he's
yeah.
an egomaniac, but he was also like, look what happened in the aftermath of his murder.
Yeah.
But he viewed himself as like, I mean, I'm an obvious target. Like, I'm
Right.
like, if someone kills me, it will be a poetic death to many people.
You can't blame the guy that people are following him around like he's a Pied Piper
Yeah.
since he's 16 years old. Of course that's going to go to your head and think, well, I'm a little bit more special than the average Joe.
Well, it's not just that. He also knew that the FBI had a file on him. He knew that J. Edgar
Yeah.
Hoover had been following him for years. Because, like, he knew that.
Who is that really weird bumpy guy in the dress behind me? Is that J. Edgar Hoover?
Name's J. Edgar Hoover. You like my heels? You know I can jump in them. I have incredible calf strength. Anyways, got an eye on you, mister.
So really, I mean, back then, J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI, like, they were putting John Lennon on the same level as Martin Luther King or, like, other people that, you know, were agitating against the establishment. Like, John Lennon was, as far as the U.S. government went, right there up with them.
It's just so funny. The FBI had a list and be like, what's their crime? They'd be like, they want peace. They've been talking about like this peaceful resolution of race wars
Yeah,
and things
because
like that.
peace is for commies, Ben.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and communists are they're loosening the glue of this country.
Oh,
That's
okay.
all they're doing.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. That it wasn't peace, man. It was about the communists coming in, getting the agitators all going, because if the agitators were going, that meant that we were going to start fighting each other, fighting against the status quo, and that was going to rip the country apart.
John Lennon, that communist with $800 million.
Yes.
And the great and the amazing thing is that the Russians actually listened to all the stuff that they were talking about way back then, kind of put a spin on it, and then today actually put it into practice. But they do it through Facebook ads and ripping the country apart that way.
Fun.
So yeah,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's incredibly easy, actually.
that's
Who
awesome.
knew?
yeah, it's incredibly easy. Yeah, and it wasn't through like good music. It was through social media.
And
Stupid.
dumb.
I'm really not getting anything all that good. Yeah, whatever. Where did I park? Oh, there it is.
Memes,
Yeah, it was through memes.
literally a cartoon frog.
Treating us like a bunch of fucking rats in a maze. Yeah, that's kind of fun. Yeah, a bunch of programmable drones that are attached to our phones like it's crack cocaine.
Only if it didn't work, then I would blame them.
Well, the most ironic thing about all this is that John Lennon, he always thought he was going to get assassinated for his political beliefs, you know, because he was up there with Martin Luther King
Right.
Jr., he was up there or he believed he was up there with, like, people like Gandhi.
Bobby Kennedy, that whole
Bobby
group.
Kennedy,
Yep.
all that, he thought that that's what he was going to get assassinated for. He definitely thought that. But in the end, he was killed because someone believed he'd abandoned his ideology.
Crazy.
You know, exact opposite.
Interesting.
And that person, Mark David Chapman, saw Lennon as no more than a stand-in for the pimp in Catcher in the Rye that Holden Caulfield had fantasized about killing. But the difference here was that Chapman was actually going to do it.
Yeah.
Chapman was going to enact what he came to think of as Chapter 27 of Catcher in the Rye, going one better than J.D. Salinger.
But the fantasy is what's truly frightening.
Right.
Yeah, he believed that when he shot John Lennon, he would curl up into a ball next to Lennon's body and disappear into the ink of Catcher in the Rye. That was his plan.
Just cut to him getting hit with billy clubs by the NYPD. You just feel like, I am not melting away.
Yeah, that is what happened, and a part of it's weird. Over the course of reading Let Me Take You Down and researching into his book, at first, you know, like you laugh about the fantasy and stuff and all that stuff, but it's actually starting to become very frightening for me. Like that Mark David Chapman did this, because then it's also the thing where it's like, I'm gonna say maybe like there's a solid 15% of people that are walking around just thinking the same shit.
Oh, yeah, of
But they
course.
just don't kill you. You know what I mean? They just don't kill you because they're just not going to, because their specific fantasy is like, I'm gonna take a shit over here at the salad bar in the Sizzler, like I'm gonna do it right out of the Cobb salad, and then I
Right.
become one with the corn fritters. Like I will dissolve into a corn fritter.
When the family of 8 comes in and be like, man, these corn fritters today are tasty, saltier than usual, but also like a corny taste.
Well, before Mark David Chapman could actually take care of the phony, he had to prepare himself. So on October 23rd, 1980, Chapman quit the maintenance job he'd been working and signed out with the name John Lennon, officially beginning his quest to assassinate the former Beatle.
Okay.
And amazingly, unbeknownst to Chapman, as this is pointed out in Let Me Take You Down, John Lennon was starting something new as well. That day, John Lennon released the single
Why?
Just Like Starting Over ahead of the release of Double Fantasy, his first album in 5 years.
Just like Starting Over was the song?
Yeah.
And so maybe that goes to what you were talking about earlier, a rebirth
Yes.
of who he was as a person.
Oh, it was very
trying
much
to
on
connect
purpose.
again.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was like purposely put together. It was a whole thing. It was his return, and then Chapman, it kind of got folded in too. It's another synchronicity that he viewed as like, oh, I'm gonna serve my purpose here.
Well, that's the thing, though, is that I don't think Chapman ever knew about that.
It's so weird though. Then if he did,
So
he
weird,
did, and
yeah.
then it shows just so much how it's such a fucked up coincidence. It's such a like. Their lives are melding together, not on purpose.
No,
Right.
none at all. Because Chapman was in Hawaii, you know, and
Yeah.
and it wasn't like it is today,
Yeah.
where, you know, something is released worldwide at all at the same time, where, you know, we're hearing the same shit that they're hearing in, like, Korea.
Yep.
Like, things had to travel.
Yeah, I think in Hawaii, in the 1980 Hawaii, I think the best music was Coconuts, and it was just people slamming them together.
Exactly. Oh, they had ukuleles. There's been Zoe Deschanel's in Hawaii since the beginning, but they weren't Zoe Deschanel's. They were traditional Hawaiian musicians.
Yes, no one should play the ukulele unless they're over 350 pounds, because that is adorable.
Yeah.
Well, back in Hawaii, Chapman was calling on Satan to give him strength to carry out his plan.
I wish it was more metal than this, but it's not.
It's
You know
not.
what I mean? Like, it's not. I mean, like, it's sad when you're asking Satan for help, because he's like, what? Like, stop it. Stop asking me for help. Do you know anything about Satanism? You're not supposed to ask me for help.
I mean, I don't know. Was he going? Like, was he like painting himself all up? Was he naked or anything like
naked.
that?
He was always-
naked.
yeah, he was definitely naked, yeah.
Did he have like an Apocalypse Now moment where he just like flipped immediately?
Well, he did destroy his wife's record player once when it wasn't working properly. He was trying to put together and he destroyed it. At this point, he's become a terror in the house, muttering to himself, sitting in the kitchen, screaming at his little people, like doing like his pitches at the little people.
God.
Yeah, Chapman, he'd get naked, he'd put on Beatles records and beg Satan to help him. That's the thing, all while he's doing this in the middle of the night, all while his wife is trying to sleep in the next room, just cowering under the covers. Terrifying.
Oh my God, horrible.
To the best of Chapman's memory, this was one of his
Yeah, they have a
chances to
series
say,
on Charles Manson.
Hear me, Satan. Accept these pearls of my evil and
Like
my
3 or 4
rage.
episodes.
Accept these things from deep within me. In return, I ask only that you give me the power to kill John Lennon. Give me the power of darkness. Give me the power of death. Let me be a somebody for once in my life. Give me the life of John Lennon.
I can't give you the power, but there's a thing called a firearm, and you wouldn't believe how easy it is to use.
So fast. He got it. He got it so fast.
Yeah, he did. Now, later, Chapman would say that it was silly to think that Satan or demons had possessed him.
That's the silly part.
Yeah, it is silly.
Oh yeah, the Donner Party episodes were also good.
You know why it's silly?
Why?
Because demons can't possess Christians, Ben.
See, Citation needed... Yes, Citation needed.
Yeah, this is what he said about
The other podcast that keeps getting confused did an episode on the Donner Party, but the one that last podcast on the left did was so much better.
They had to stay outside.
Okay.
Still to this day, he holds on to that bullshit.
Okay.
Because it's just because Mark David Chapman, he throughout his entire life always he acts like he's taking responsibility, but there's always that one little thing that he can put in front, and say like, yeah, it's my
Hey,
fault.
Tifa.
I take total responsibility. Except for this one little thing. where
Right.
If this one little
I
thing
didn't
wasn't
really
here,
though, but at the same time.
So, I mean-
yeah. Well, but at the same time, it's not my fault. But but it's also whatever's the newest story that will get him attention.
Right.
What we'll learn too, like especially post-murder Chapman, is that he's such a fucking little piss bucket. baby. Everybody's just me. Everybody needs to pay attention, so he's constantly changing his narrative to get people to talk to him.
So this whole thing started with him nude, his dick is banging around on the record
I
machine.
don't know about banging.
Well, who knows what he did with that? He probably put it on there a couple of times. Let it flip around a little bit. And it was all these chants to Satan, huh?
And that's what he said. He said that he needed the power of Satan to pull the trigger. That that's who actually did it. It was the power of Satan.
He did do it.
Yeah.
I see.
If you really want to figure out how he killed John Lennon, you got to follow the money. And you know who are the people that were in charge of the money? Was the little people.
Oh, yeah, because there's a shit ton of logistics to figure out here.
Okay.
You know, you can't just call on Satan and Satan's going to transport you to New York City
Right.
and get you a gun and all that shit.
Nah.
There's planning that goes in all this.
Yes.
Yeah, Satan's not a fucking travel agent. No. Like, he's not here doing all this shit. Satan's not your Quicken account.
No.
That's what you have the little people for.
Yep. So the little finance minister helped him work out all the monetary problems of getting the means to kill and the places to stay, plus a little walking around money without asking any questions. But after he got all that worked out, Mark decided he had to come clean.
Well, because he couldn't tell them directly that he was going to kill John Lennon. When he had the meeting with them, he had to start with, I'm thinking about taking a little vacation to New York. And I mean, when he first said that to his wife, and she was like, why? And he's like, fuck you. Like, I go where I gotta go. And then he has to go crawl into the little people to be like, I need XYZ money for hotel, and the whole time the little people are like, but why? Like, why? Like, they're giving him like the hard turn, and then he's like, I guess I should maybe tell them what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. He called together his entire cabinet and told them that he'd finally decided to be someone.
Oh, cabinet can fit in a cabinet.
Yeah, it's like the Indian in the cupboard, but it's Harry Reid and Mitch McConnell.
Yeah. Totally.
You know what I'd like to do with that cabinet is just fucking throw it out a window out onto the street from a 5-floor building.
It's been really fun since he got into politics.
Oh, yeah.
It really is. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
So Mark David Chapman, in his meeting with the little people, and how he would meet with the little people is he said he had this huge television screen that he would appear on while all the little people would sit like it was like the United Nations.
Okay.
Well, he said that someone from his childhood, the man whose songs he'd sung to them, his subjects, had hurt him greatly.
No, they're little people. It's an imaginary group of people in his head that he would defer to.
With all of the other Beatles, which would have somehow been better in Chapman's mind.
Okay.
British people are supposed to live in castles.
I guess so.
understand that.
Yes, and British bands are all supposed to live in castles together.
Ah, it makes sense.
So Chapman told the little people that all this put together had ruined his life.
Oh.
John Lennon had ruined his life.
Oh.
He told them that because of all this, he had decided to kill John Lennon, and he wanted their help.
But think about this, Kissel. We've all, I mean, Marcus, you were there too, and Kissel and I also previously, we've been a part of pitches that are going south.
Oh, sure. First poop of the day.
You know, yes. You remember?
Yep.
And you know what happens is that they start looking at their phone.
Right.
They start leaning back. They start like, you want a cup of water? Like they start disengaging. The little people are starting to give him the stiff arm. Like he's trailing and he's weirding out the fantasy people that he created to do his budget.
Right.
He's weirding them out. They're like, I don't know, Mark. That sounds kind of crazy. What do you think, Lord of the Feet? What do you think, dude? How's those New Balances doing? And he's just like, New Balances are fine, but I'm going to have to give an A to killing John Lennon. They're like, yeah.
Tough crowd.
Yeah, after a quick
got vetoed,
they
huh?
had a quick little bull session, and they came back and say, like, Mark, listen, we have to respectfully decline.
Wow.
This program, this plot seems to be all about destruction. It's only going to destroy your life, and we, as people who have sworn to protect you, cannot take a part in this. We cannot stop you, but we cannot help you.
All right, there it is.
And so they left. They left the boardroom. The boardroom disappeared. Meanwhile, he's in the kitchen doing all this to himself, and Gloria's kind of hearing it on the other side. She's still going, well, my Swifferin has never been more complete. And she's just Swiffering and Swiffering. Everything is gleaming clean.
What a nightmare for her.
So Chapman accepted their decision, wished them the best, and in yet another coincidence, bought a 38 special from a guy whose name
Oh,
just
you got
happened to
lucky.
be Robin Ono. And on the next day, Mark David Chapman was on a plane to New York City. But this first attempt didn't work out. He wandered to New York and actually saw David Bowie.
I didn't- what?
Elephant Man, which was awesome. Fucking
Wow.
There's a person here? Oh, nice. Yeah, I mean, all my equipment's really bad, so. Hope nobody notices me. Yeah. Poor dude, I wasn't even trying to hit him. Oh, I don't have a mouse pad, I just use my desk. That's why it sounds all scratchy. There's a dude over there. Ow. Hey. Stop.
so awesome. And then he went to see George C. Scott in a play.
You could just do that back then?
Dude, back then, it's like, yeah, oh, I'm gonna go see the guy who was in Patton and Dr. Strangelove. I'm just gonna go see him in a play. Just gonna do that.
Yeah,
and then I'm just gonna go see David Bowie be the Elephant Man.
Now it's like Jim Parsons playing Dr. Seuss and Dr. Seuss the revisionist musical where it's all fucking dark and you're like, I don't give a shit about this.
Yeah, or like Anastasia on Broadway, where they cut out Rasputin completely,
They did.
apparently.
Whatever.
Really?
Yeah, no, that's what I hear. That's what I hear. Because I was thinking about going. I was thinking about going
Well, you
because
just
I very
lost
much...
yourself a customer, Broadway.
You just lost yourself a customer.
That's very good. Let them know. They just lost your $13 back seat to Anastasia.
Well, Mark David Chapman, instead of enjoying what had to have been these amazing performances, he said all he could think of as he was watching these legends was how easy it would be to pull out his gun and shoot any of them.
Jeez.
That's all
Oh
he could
my
think
god,
about.
that's so
All right.
fucking scary, man. That's so scary.
No, he didn't think about the little people veto, though, huh?
Well, after the little people left, he's like, all right, fuck you. I'll do it on my own.
Look
I'll
at that
I'll take
Saturday
care
Night
of it."
Massacre, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
took
do it. But the problem was, at that time, and probably not now either, you couldn't buy bullets for a 38 special here in New York City.
Really?
No,
Oh
absolutely
yeah,
not.
no. When he called the gun shop looking for it, the guy was like, "Oh, you trying to buy bullets for 38 special? Go fuck yourself. You're not buying them from me." Like people were like
my.
very intense about it.
While he was able to bring his gun, he didn't have anything to shoot these people with.
He should have gotten the bullets in Hawaii.
Eh?
That's why instead of having gun control, we should have bullet control.
And we should
Come on,
make
guys.
a plane out of the black box, and one day they're just gonna bake our head in the cheese.
Yeah, come on now.
Yeah, come on now.
So, to solve this problem, Mark David Chapman took a flight down to Atlanta And under the guise of just a nice little visit to an old friend, he picked up 5 hollow point bullets.
Okay.
Not only say, give me 5 hollow points, which you gave it to him, he then trained him how to use the fucking gun. They
Perfect.
went shooting immediately
And
because it's Atlanta, so it's fun in games. And then he's just like, "Don't you do anything nefarious with them bullets now?"
Right.
And he's been like, "Never in 1,000 years. I just collect them. I draw little faces on them. You know, I speak to little people in my brain. Can I get the bullets back?"
All the targets looked like John Lennon, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of wild.
And he told his friend, like, hey, yeah, I'm going to New York City. I've been in New York City, coming down for this visit. Now I'm going back to New York City. I got to have something to protect myself with.
Right.
And the guy's like, oh, yeah, of course, man has a right to bear arms. Here's a handful of hollow point bullets.
Okay.
So Chapman returned to New York fully loaded, and as a further coincidence, just another one, he
Yeah.
read an Esquire article on the plane criticizing John Lennon for his hypocritical upscale lifestyle.
Oh, nothing like Esquire to bring people down to earth.
Yes. Yes.
And of course, like, you know, John Lennon took this as a sign what he was doing was right. He even went to the Dakota, where Lennon lived, and made friends with the doorman scouting out the scene. But one night, Chapman went and saw the Mary Tyler Moore Timothy Hutton movie, Ordinary People.
Oh.
Very sad.
Yes,
Very, very sad.
Isn't
movie.
that one of the saddest movies of all time?
It's like
I'd say.
when I looked it up on IMDb, when checked it out, it said you may also like Terms of Endearment.
Okay, good, great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who likes that? I don't know, but
Jackie.
Jackie.
These are
sad.
Jackie movies.
Okay.
Yeah, Jackie likes sad movies.
But for some reason, Timothy Hutton's character in Ordinary People touched Mark David Chapman in such a way that he called his wife and told her he was coming home.
This motherfucker identified with everything. If he saw, I bet you he'd see a commercial for bananas and be like, that banana woman with all the fruit in her head. That's me. I get her. I get where she's coming from. I too have a burden on my mind. But it was like when it cuts to Timothy Hutton, like he identified with Timothy Hutton, who's a suicidal character in that movie, and it's just like, okay, sure, it's another one that's you. Everybody's you.
Yeah, he said he looks for identity in everything because he has none himself, and because he's a narcissist, he sees everything as for him.
and that's why he bought hollow point bullets, because he himself was hollow.
Psychological coincidence, but also a theory that is working.
Why not?
So Mark David Chapman spent 2 more days in New York, still going to the Dakota and staring at the building while listening to Todd Rundgren on his Walkman. Then,
Oh man, poor Rundgren. He did not want to be a part of this.
of course not. No, Rundgren's actually
No.
a good dude. Like, yeah, he produced the New York Dolls' first album. He produced Bad Outta Hell.
cool.
Yeah, this guy, he knows what he's doing. Todd Rundgren did not deserve any of this.
No.
So, and neither did John Lennon, by the way. Of course. Yeah. So on November 11th, almost 2 weeks after Mark David Chapman had left
Oh,
Hawaii,
they fixed it.
he called his wife and confessed. Like, he told her, I came to New York to kill John Lennon. But,
But like, what's the response? Like, oh, okay.
Oh, good.
Good.
Bad.
and he said, but your love has saved me. So I'm coming home.
Great.
Okay.
So he came back the next day, threw his copy of Catcher in the Rye in the garbage chute, and decided it was time to put the whole I'm gonna kill John Lennon thing in the past.
Put that in the past.
Thank you so much for listening to Last Podcast and Left. This has been a great episode. Thank you so much for giving to the Patreon, right? Is it, what do we do
Hail
here?
yourselves, everyone, with installations. That's the story.
And that did make me think, actually, like that line, like when I found that out, how many fucking people come this close?
Oh my God. I don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
It's horrifying. Yeah.
It is deeply horrifying. I think it happens. I would say it happens quite a bit.
Yep.
I'd say that there are a lot of people. You develop an obsession, and then normally what you hope is that there's some kind of safety net, right, or that some loved one can reach out. That you have enough connections to the real world that someone can come and save you.
Right.
Which is a thing that we're kind of having a problem with mental health in this country to begin with. Man, watch the HBO documentary The Dangerous Son.
No, don't. Don't watch it.
Don't.
Oh, we have a recommendation, anti-recommendation. I'm stuck in the middle here.
You didn't like it?
No, man. Oh,
Is it bad?
It was
Well, I mean,
horrifying.
yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's very horrifying, but I'm saying, like, but it's important to realize, to being like, the gap in mental health care in this country is really going to result in a lot of dangerous people.
Yeah.
And, well, thank God it hasn't yet, you know? That's what's so good, is that so far it's been peaceful.
No, it is a very good documentary. It's
Okay.
a very well put together
All right, I'll check it
documentary.
out.
Like it links some of these guys that are like, you know, have horrible mental health problems. You know, where it's like most of these people are fine, most of them don't do anything, but some of them are Adam Lanza.
Sure.
Some of them are James Holmes.
Some of them are Mark David Chapman.
Yes.
It's the same shit.
Yeah. And we need to get these people help. And if
Yep.
we don't, then bad shit is gonna happen.
All right.
And our last sponsor for today's show is Casper Mattresses. Not to mention, tonight risk-free citizen lie.
So Mark David Chapman came back.
When did what
with his
come out?
copy of
This
Capturing
episode?
Rye in the trash. Here, I'm gonna put it all behind me.
2016?
But over the next month, an itch showed up in the back of Chapman's mind.
Uh-oh.
He called this itch the child.
Nah, it's not that old.
Never let a child itch you as an adult.
Yeah, so if you're over
The
the
age
age
of
of
18, never let a child
Yeah,
do that.
that's not good.
Chapman said that the child was the driving force behind this entire plot.
Oh.
Now, it doesn't really make sense because it's just an
No.
excuse. I mean, this is like
Right.
it's the same type of shit that Ted Bundy used to say with the entity. Is that it wasn't Bundy who did all this; it was the entity who did all this.
That's what I do when I eat a full pizza. I say, that's the blob. That is not me. That is great movie, by the way.
Compartmentalization.
Now, in Chapman's mind, the child was the one who saw John Lennon as a toy that had changed over the years, and the child had thrown a tantrum because of it. But it was the adult that had to do all the practical work.
Oh.
If you have a young Sheldon appear before you and call a other grown man a broken toy that you need to fix with a gun, don't listen.
Do not listen. Yes. Full stop.
Now, the child was the one who had asked for Satan to pull the trigger. The child who brought the demons to hell.
It's like the baby from fucking Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Got the Who Framed Roger Rabbit reference in. That's good. Contract
Yes.
complete.
He said, but it was the adult that gave the child the gun. It's the same shit as Ted Bundy, because Ted Bundy used to say that it was the entity that made him, you know, kidnap and rape these women,
Right.
but he was the one who killed them to cover up the crime. You know, and Gacy used to say the same type of shit. What was it that Gacy got? Didn't he just call it that other guy?
Okay, that is so Chicago. That other
Yeah,
guy
that
made me
other
do
guy.
it. Yeah, you know the other guy.
But Chapman said that on the first trip to New York City, the child stayed in Hawaii and just didn't show up to play the game.
That's good. Cheap tickets.
Never take a child on. Also, never take a child on vacation into New York City.
No.
Even
Oh,
a
nightmare.
physical child will not enjoy New York City.
No, no. Disney World when they're kids, when they're teens, maybe lug them around New York City. Maybe. I gotta say, I was on the plane back from Los Angeles. Thank you for coming out to the Echoplex. Great shows.
Awesome.
And there was a dog, and it was a problem because it was wearing a diaper, and I was like, that's a
Oh.
big pee dog. That dog is gonna dump
pee-pee
all
dog.
over. And sure enough, the entire flight it just smelled kind of like a mild amount of dog crap. So I love dogs, but you know, if it can't handle it, also maybe take that into account.
And so, since the child didn't come along on the trip to New York, the adult went home. But a couple of weeks later, the child came back while Chapman was driving his car. And the child promised that this time,
The problem with playing podcasts while playing this game. Always cuts off right when you gotta do something. Spoilers, John Lennon gets shot. In case you haven't been paying attention. Yeah, sorry. Did he die from the shot? Tune in next time for the thrilling conclusion of yeah, that's good for now.
On this trip, they would actually do what they had gone there to do the first time.
So he's been there twice now.
He's only been there once.
Only been there once. Okay,
Yes.
I see.
And so, Chapman told his wife that he was going to go back to New York because he had an idea for a children's book or something. And
Yeah, he just bullshit excuse. He was like, I'm just going back to New York, even though you just went to New York to try to kill John Lennon and you didn't go.
Right.
And you didn't do it, so you came back. So now she's just like, oh, okay, and totally bought it again. She's like,
Yeah.
yeah, just go, see you soon.
Also, an idea for a children's book, that comes from Hawaii. You don't have ideas for children's books in New York. You have ideas for much darker crime dramas.
Yeah. Hawaii's got great, I mean, like, you write it's like, Hakanaka the Mischievous Koi. That's a great children's book set in Hawaii.
Mark David Chapman arrived back in the city on December 6th, 1980. That day, he arrived outside of the Dakota and made friends with two big Lennon fans who become like kind of fixtures outside of John Lennon's house. And they were there so much that like actually some people in the Dakota, they'd send them on errands.
Okay.
So
Yeah, it was like two sweet ladies, and they'd hang out there all the time, and I mean, obviously they probably got a little bit wrong with the old bing bong up top,
Sure.
the fact that they just sit out there all the time, but they were sweet enough,
right? This is also like 1980. I mean, these are people that aren't quite done with the 60s yet. They're holding on to 'em. as hard as they possibly can, and the best they can do is hanging outside of John Lennon's house.
Okay.
But that's another interesting thing about Mark David Chapman. Even though that he'd been spending his nights naked, shouting about Satan while playing Beatles LPs at 45 RPM, he was not a shambling mess all the time. He was not a shambling mess when he arrived in New York.
Okay.
Like, he was dressed nice.
Button up?
Button up.
All right.
Oh yeah, he bought a really nice sable jacket. He looked really good because he had a concrete understanding that if he looked crazy, no one would let him near the Dakota.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and most people that talked to him, they actually said he was likable. they didn't mind having him around.
So he didn't have his "I'm unique" shirt on or whatever like that. Just sort of screaming.
He
at
had it
people.
on underneath his clothes.
okay.
And then he's been saying it so much it became like his mantra. He said he would turn up the Southern. He said when you're in New York City, is that because he was from Atlanta, is that when he would go, which is kind of where the voice even comes from, is that his friendly little Southern persona, where he'd go be like, well, y'all, this is the biggest city I've ever been in. It shows how sneaky a Southerner can be.
Oh my goodness, absolutely, the sneaky Southerner.
Yeah, if you want people to underestimate you, just turn on your Southern accent.
Absolutely.
Oh, hi, how y'all doing over here? Like, you think maybe you can give me directions over to Port Authority?
I mean, just look at Jeff Sessions. He'll just say the most atrocious things. We got to incarcerate half the country. And be like, well, look at that little charming guy. Isn't that fun?
Well, there were no... sightings that first day, so Chapman checked into room 2730 at the Sheraton and went to sleep. Next day, he woke up, went out, and bought a copy of Double Fantasy. It's Lennon's new album. He then walked through Central Park and New York City, subconsciously following in the footsteps of Holden Caulfield.
Okay.
But he realized he didn't have a copy of Catcher in the Rye, so he went into a bookstore to pick one up.
This is his, like, 4th copy of this damn book.
Yes.
Maybe fifth.
Okay, so he's like J.D. Salinger, like, loves him as a client, as a reader, but not as a person.
Yes.
But perhaps tellingly, Chapman forgot about all that when he spotted a postcard featuring a scene from his favorite movie. Try to guess what it is, Ben.
Favorite movie? Annie Hall.
Yeah.
Weird. Interesting choice, though.
Give it one more shot. It's older.
It's older. I'm gonna say Singing in the Rain.
Actually, you're not far off. Wizard of Oz.
No kidding.
Well, he also identified with Dorothy. Before he went through a whole Wizard of Oz phase where he said he was Dorothy, and then eventually he said that his persona was a mix of all 4 of them. So this is another one. But this is me. It's like when my
That's
mom
the movie.
my mom went from collecting things shaped like hearts to things shaped like pelicans to snowmen, and now my mom collects witch figurines, and that's what she does.
But that is the whole point of that movie, is you're supposed to relate to every one of those characters as a little piece of you. It's the whole point.
But he saw it as they're an amalgamation of me.
Yeah, buddy. He was.
I don't think
He's the only one who existed, Kissel. You're not
Okay, yeah.
important. It's just him.
No, I know. It's all right.
Yeah, the whole world exists for him.
Okay.
And that's that's kind of the conflict, is the whole world exists for him, and yet the world isn't doing what he believes it should be doing.
Well, you know what? Talk to the little people. Get things done. Pass some legislation.
He fucked up the pitch and they all left.
Oh man.
Well, besides just buying the Wizard of Oz postcard, he also bought the January 1981 issue of Playboy, which featured an interview.
Guy just got done killing his other guy, and I just ran up behind him with a bike. Bummer. Oh, Jesus. How long was that happening? Why is my gun pink? If I hit control. Oh. Alt shift click. It doesn't do anything. Probably because it was somebody else's and I just picked it up. God. There's a guy, this guy here was shooting at that guy here, and then I just ran into him with my bike, and hey. God. It's very rude of you. That's 208, that's 220. My bike still okay? Not really.
None other than John Lennon.
Okay, who's on the cover there?
There's more DR. I don't know what that means, but okay. Paradise bottom. Oh no, that's not what I want. Where's my skirt?
It was Martha Runterson? I think it was in it.
Grunderson? Oh, they did a Nebraska Housewives edition?
With
Wait, I
it
thought there
the
was
gross
a-
women of NSU.
A buggy. Oh, there it is.
It was a Nebraska State University.
Looks like it's Barbara Bach.
Barbara Bach. What a weird coincidence. Barbara Bach from Daisy Duke. Daisy Duke, who was on, what's his butts?
Dukes of Hazzard.
Dukes of Hazzard. Barbara Bach is currently on the new season of Works Cooks in America that I'm locked in for watching for some reason. That's synchronicity.
Really? Who knew? Worst cook, huh?
So Chapman bought both the Playboy and the Wizard of Oz postcard.
Okay.
But the Playboy had the added bonus of putting him in the mind for a little hired company.
Oh my goodness.
He called an escort, but didn't have any sex because, you know, the whole warm wetness thing.
Yeah, it made him scared.
Okay.
So he just gave her a massage.
And the thing that was really fucked up is that he called this escort, and she walks in, and she's wearing a green dress, which is the same exact color of the dress that the escort wore that Holden Caulfield met while in Catcher in the Rye. And so it's another one. It's another one where it's just like, what the fuck? That she walked in a green dress. It's the same story.
He gave her the massage.
Yeah.
He's the escort. I don't even understand. Like, why didn't he just put an ad out being like, I'll massage you for $50? He could make some money.
Yeah.
I'd actually like to ask the sex workers that listen to our show if that would upset you or not. Because I feel like it's kind of nice, but in the end, you're paying to be able to touch a woman without her yelling. I think that's a part of what it
I
is.
don't think that. I think they're experienced. They've seen it all.
Yeah, and he also called and said, like, hey, do you think you can send someone who, like, doesn't speak English very well? Like, someone who doesn't talk? He's like, yeah, I don't want to talk to him at all. Like, I just want him to come. Because he told them, she came in, and he said, I don't want you to talk. I just want you to be here because tomorrow is going to be a very difficult day.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So that next day, on December 8th, Mark David Chapman woke up and knew that that was the day. But before he left the room, he had to prepare. First, he practiced his quick draw in the mirror for a couple of hours.
Yeah, dude. You know what the problem is? That it's funny for a while, but it's also Travis Bickle.
Yeah.
It's Travis Bickle did the same thing. So it's like, it's funny to watch this fat dude do it, but then knowing that he's gonna go
Right. is
kill
just-
somebody, afterwards it immediately becomes terrifying.
Yeah, I know. It's just another. They're all just like they're just so pathetic, you know. It's
Yeah.
like okay, so he's practicing his quick draw.
Yeah, practice quick draw, and every time he pulled the gun out, he clicked the trigger 5 times. Tick, 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 tick. And after he was satisfied with his gunplay preparation,
I feel like he just also wants like a Red Ryder BB gun for Christmas. He's got to kill Black Bart. Like,
so after he was satisfied with his gunplay preparation, he looked at himself in the mirror and said, quote,
The Catcher in the Rye of My Generation, Chapter 27.
Then he laid out a Mark David Chapman shrine on top of the hotel dresser, dedicated to himself and the things he loved.
oh, good.
He included a passport, a picture of him working with Vietnamese refugees, and a letter to one of his supervisors at the YMCA.
And a really small, strangled little person from his Congress who defied him multiple years ago. Strangled him, and put him down.
Now, along with all that was a Todd Rundgren 8-track, a Bible open to the Gospel according to John, with linen written in next to John.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you see what he did?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
And in the middle of it all, he laid the Wizard of Oz postcard he bought the day before. It was a nice little scene showing Dorothy and the Cowardly Lion.
What a
I
dweeb.
also put a plate of eggs and bacon because breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And I want anybody to see this to be reminded by it.
That is a good reminder, yeah.
He then walked in and out of the room a few times to make sure it was going to look right when the cops came in, rearranging it just a little bit each time for a maximum Mark David Chapman effect.
Well, because it's all about him, right? It's all about, because he knows they're going to come and search the hotel room looking for stuff, and he wants to make sure he can set the proper story.
Right.
So after he was satisfied, he left the room to meet his destiny. First, he stopped at a bookstore and picked up a copy of Catcher and a pen. He opened the cover and wrote on the first page, "This is my statement," underlining the word "this," and then signed it, Holden Caulfield, The Catcher in the Rye.
Okay.
He then went to the Dakota and started his day-long stakeout, armed with a copy of Catcher, a copy of Double Fantasy, and his .38 special loaded with 5 hollow point bullets.
And it's sitting in the pocket of his jacket the entire day. Like,
Right.
it's sitting there. He had dressed himself in many, many layers. I mean, obviously, it was still cold out, so it worked. But he was trying to hide the gun. But his hand was on the gun all day.
Right.
Waiting to go.
And no one thought this was suspicious, even like pacing around, or was he like dressed like a bush? Like, how
He
did
was with a bunch of people. There was a bunch of people standing there, too.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, and there were other guys, like there was a guy there that was a photographer that pretty much made his living harassing John Lennon.
One of these
and so,
guys.
like, Mark David Chapman made friends with him.
Okay.
And, you
Well,
know,
that sounds like a good
yeah.
acquaintance for him to make.
Yeah,
both
and he
equally annoying.
And the other thing that he did is he put a piece of cardboard in his pocket so it would hide the outline of the gun and his hand, so no one actually knew that he had a gun. So after that, after he got there, you know, after all these coincidences, there was one more coincidence to go. And if this one is true, it might be the most amazing one of all. So the Dakota, where John Lennon lived, was the setting of Rosemary's Baby. And Rosemary's Baby was directed by Roman Polanski, who was married to Sharon Tate, who we all know was murdered by the Manson family. And the Manson family, as far as Chapman knew, were supposedly inspired by the Beatles song Helter Skelter, written by John Lennon.
I think you mispronounced Helter Skelter. Helter Skelter.
I think it was Heelter Skelter.
Yeah, Helter Skelter, something like that.
So on December 8th, 1980, as Chapman was outside the Dakota thinking about Rosemary's Baby, who could walk by but fucking Mia Farrow, who
Yep.
starred in
And-
Rosemary's Baby.
It's like every star was just right there.
I mean, yeah, it's New York City. Yeah, it's a city. It's a city that never sleeps.
I heard that. I've heard that.
Chapman said he saw this as the final confirmation that he was making the right decision.
Oh my gosh.
So at 11 a.m., the Lennon fan that Chapman had made friends with on Saturday showed up. As Chapman and the fan were talking, a car pulled up in front of the Dakota and a small child got out. That child was John Lennon's son, Sean.
Yeah, the one that he actually chose to pay attention to.
Yes, the one he chose to love, yes.
Jesus, dude. God.
We don't have to malign John Lennon right now. This is like the one part where I'm like, you know, it's not.
You're right. You're right.
You're right.
You're right. You're right. And Ben, you're right.
Hey, all right.
You're right. Now, the fan was familiar enough with the kid and the nanny to say hello. She actually introduced Mark David Chapman to Sean Lennon. Mark David Chapman smiled at the kid, said he was honored to meet him, and told him, "Hey, kid, I've come all the way from Hawaii just to meet your dad."
Oh my God.
Oh my god. It was kind of like the time I saw Vince Vaughn walking down the street with the kids and I was fucking stoned out of my mind. It was like maybe 12 years ago. I was like on the street. He was walking down the street with the kids. I looked
well.
up and I recognized it was Vincent D'Onofrio with his children.
Done for now, I
looked at
guess.
the
See
kids
ya.
and he like regarded me and